Back in the 1980s, something unusual happened inside General Motors. Three different forces, none of which really seemed like they'd go together, collided. And the result of that collision was a car no one had really been asking for, but Buick decided to build anyway. That car was the Buick Reatta. The first of those forces was Buick itself. By the early 80s, Buick had a bit of an image problem. For decades, the brand was known as the choice of retirees, golf club regulars, and slow Sunday drivers. If you were under 50, chances are you didn't see a Buick as something you'd ever want to own. Buick's cars were comfortable, yes. Reliable, sure. But youthful and exciting? Absolutely not. The brand desperately wanted to shake that old man's car reputation, and they knew that bold, fresh, youthful design would be key to doing it. The second force was brewing inside GM's own design studios. Cadillac had just dropped a bombshell on the company's in-house design teams. They outsourced the design of their new Alente Roadster to Italy's famous Pininfarina. To say GM's designers were insulted would be putting it lightly. They were determined to prove that American design talent could go toe-to-toe with the best in Europe. They wanted to show GM's executives that they didn't need an Italian address to create something world-class. And the third force? The American car market itself was shifting. The 1980s saw a growing appetite for personal luxury coupes, sleek two-door cars that weren't about raw performance or family practicality, but about style, comfort, and status. They were the kind of car you bought to make a statement. Buick saw an opening here. They didn't just want to participate in this new luxury coupe game, they wanted to stand out. From this strange but ambitious mix of motivations, the Buick Reatta was born. A sleek, high-tech two-seat Grand Tourer. It was something completely new for Buick, and it would also be the last time they would ever attempt something quite like it. From dream to reality. After Cadillac's Italian design move, GM's Advanced Design 2 studio launched an internal contest to dream up a new two-seat Buick. The winning sketch came from Dave McIntosh around 1982, a clean, curvy design that stood out from Buick's traditionally boxy sedans. It was a bold, almost European look, and it would slowly evolve into the production Reatta that hit showrooms in 1988. But the road from sketch to showroom was far from smooth. GM wanted the Reatta to be affordable to produce, which meant it had to share a lot with existing GM cars. Unfortunately, that meant the E-body platform, the same one used under the larger Buick Riviera. It was a solid front-wheel drive chassis, but it wasn't exactly sporty. Even worse, it had been designed for long, squared-off coupes, not a low, sleek two-seater. Still, Buick's designers were determined to make it work. Drawing inspiration from European cars like Porsche, they gave the Reatta sharp-side creases, a smooth rear panel, and a longer nose to balance its proportions. Designers Irv Rybicki and Ted Pock reworked the car's profile, trimming the front overhang and pushing the nose forward, just enough to make it look athletic. The result was an interesting mix. It looked like a typical angular 80s coupe that had been smoothed down with a sanding block. It wasn't as flashy as a Corvette or as aggressive as a Porsche, but it was cleaner and more modern than most Buicks of the time. A glimpse of the future. Inside. If the exterior was understated, the interior was where Buick decided to make a statement. The Reatta's cabin was roomy for a two-seater, with wide, supportive seats perfect for long-distance cruising. But the real star was the technology. The Reatta came with fully digital gauges, but even more impressive was the touchscreen. Yes, a touchscreen in the late 80s. This wasn't a quick, high-resolution display like we're used to today. It was a dash-mounted CRT screen that looked more like a tiny TV, but it could control almost everything. Climate settings, audio, trip computer functions, and even some engine diagnostics. First used in the 1986 Riviera, the system was updated for the Reatta. For the time, it felt like something out of a sci-fi movie, even if in reality it was a bit slow and clunky. The dashboard itself was large and blocky, almost like a command center, which clashed somewhat with the smooth curves of the door panels and the rest of the cabin. Still, for a late 80s Buick, this was incredibly advanced. You could almost imagine Buick engineers proudly saying, "We built the future." On the road. The Reatta wasn't just a tech showpiece, it had some respectable engineering under it as well. It featured four-wheel anti-lock disc brakes, fully independent suspension, McPherson struts in the front, and a transverse leaf spring setup in the rear. In testing, Car and Driver recorded 0.79 grams of lateral grip in 1988. Not bad for a front-wheel drive car of the era. But when it came to pure driving excitement, things got complicated. As Car and Driver put it at the time, the Reatta was nearly viceless, and also nearly soulless. It handled predictably and comfortably, but it didn't stir emotions. Power came from Buick's familiar 3.8-liter V6, the LN3 version, producing 165 horsepower and 210 pound-feet of torque. It was reliable and smooth, but paired with an automatic transmission and weighing about 3,400 pounds, the Reatta took roughly 9 seconds to go from 0 to 60 miles per hour. Against European rivals from Mercedes, BMW, or even Jaguar, that was underwhelming. Buick's pitch was clear, a smaller, more affordable American Grand Tourer. But by the time it launched, the Europeans had moved ahead with bigger engines and more advanced performance. Buick was aiming at where the market had been, not where it was going. The sales struggle. The Reatta faced an uphill battle from day one. Not only was it up against imported luxury coupes, but it also had to compete with Cadillac's Alente, another expensive, stylish two-seater from within GM itself. Originally pitched as a $20,000 luxury bargain, the Reatta's price crept upward. By launch, it was closer to $25,000. And by 1991, a base coupe cost over $29,000. The convertible, introduced in 1990, added another $5,000. Buick's plan had been to undercut the luxury competition on price. But as the cost went up and performance stayed modest, buyers lost interest. Buick hoped to sell 15,000 Reattas a year. In 4 years, they barely moved just over 21,000. The convertible and special editions. The convertible was meant to boost excitement. It came with extra chassis bracing, but still wasn't as rigid as the coupe. Oddly, the first year's soft top was manual, a strange choice for such a tech-focused car. Buick fixed that in 1991 with a power top and a hard tonneau cover, but by then, the damage was done. A few special editions appeared. The Select 60 models were given to top dealerships. In 1988, black with tan leather. In 1990, white with bright red interiors and 16-inch wheels. They were distinctive but never became collector gold. The end of the road. For 1991, Buick gave the Reatta standard 16-inch wheels and a slightly updated V6 with 170 horsepower and 220 pound-feet of torque. But sales collapsed to under 1,500 cars that year. With just over 21,000 units built over its entire run, the Reatta quietly left the market. A costly experiment for Buick. Looking back, the Reatta is one of the most unusual cars Buick ever made. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't the performance champion Buick might have hoped for, but it was ambitious, forward-thinking, and undeniably different. Buick took a risk, and even though it didn't pay off, the Reatta remains a fascinating reminder of a time when Buick dared to be bold.